Cornel West appeared on Meet the Press Now this week. He did an interview with Kristen Welker. It was about 10 minutes long. She asked him repeatedly variations of the question, why are you running third party? Why aren't you running as a Democrat? And when are you dropping out of the race? So we didn't play the full interview. We have a couple of questions here that I just want to play. This is about 4 minutes. We will stop and start as we go.
He handled this quite masterfully.
This was good.
Yeah. And this is why I felt like, and I've been critical of some elements of his campaign, like he's not returning our calls, things like that. But I don't know why he doesn't want the DueDissidence bump. I mean, every time we mention Trump, his numbers go up. Clearly, we're having an effect.
We're doing great things for Donald Trump now.
We're doing amazing things for Donald Trump. Yeah, that interview he had with Anderson Cooper, he's just getting his sea legs. He's never run for president before. I thought if you watch this, you could see he learned from that interview how to field these kinds of questions.
For sure. All right. So first she starts out, these are a couple different points in the interview, but I thought this was noteworthy for the response he gets from her. And you'll see what I mean. This is her saying, hey, Bernie ran as a Democrat twice. You like Bernie. Why don't you follow his advice?
Senator Bernie Sanders, he's your longtime political ally. Senator Bernie Sanders, he's not a Democrat, but he did, as you know, run twice in the Democratic presidential primary. So let me just put the question to you. Why have you decided to run as a third party candidate rather than a Democrat challenging President Biden?
Yes, Bernie Sanders, as you know, is my very dear brother. I have a deep love for him. We have disagreement at this historical moment. I'm thoroughly convinced that neither party is speaking to the pressing needs of poor and working people. And so the two-party system itself is becoming an impediment for the flowering of American democracy. We've got too many fellow citizens, 63%. Living paycheck to paycheck. And many of us know exactly what that means, no matter how big or small our check actually is. And so in that sense, I must say that it's hard to view oneself as a spoiler when there's increasing rot in the system with two parties connected to big money, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and militarism.
Look at that. That's why I wanted to play that. Look at that nod. What have I talked about all the time? I talk about the liberal cat stare, right? Where when you talking about how 63% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, can't afford $500 emergency, right? The liberals look at you like a cat looks at you when you're talking to it. Like, huh? Like, okay, I know you're talking to me. What exactly are you saying? Do you expect me to understand this? I'm a cat, right? I don't understand what you're saying. That's the reaction you usually get. Look at this reaction he gets from liberal media. Look at that squint and the nod. She feels it. She gets it. That's how you know it's a good answer. I honestly do. As someone who's pointed out the liberal cat stare over and over again, I was really taken to see that because when he mentioned the same points to Caitlin Collins, what did she give him? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? That's the reaction you get all the time. She actually felt it. That actually worked. That's how you know that was a good answer.
Caitlin Collins, that's also who she is and the reason that they decided to, build the network around her. They decided they're going to move forward with her. They want an automaton. They want an automaton who's just going to parrot the party line, who doesn't have any particular thoughts of her own or personality. Like, she really has no personality at all.
Right.
And that it says a lot about them that seems to be how they want to move forward with a figure like that.
Well, yeah. That's mostly what's on offer in that world. The thing I find funny about this question, though, it's hilarious when she says, well, Bernie Sanders, your ally, he wasn't a Democrat, but he ran as a Democrat. Why aren't you running as a Democrat? As if the line of attack from these people against Bernie Sanders was that he had no business running as a Democrat because he's not a Democrat. That's what they always told. They told Bernie Sanders that every time he was on TV. Are you a Democrat? With the implication being, why are you running in the Democratic Party if you're not a Democrat?
Right.
And so now they're saying, well, why don't you run as a Democrat being that your friend. See, they always wanted Bernie to run as a Democrat because they knew he was no threat as a Democrat because they could always rig it against him as a Democrat. And now they're trying to pull this like switch around. It's very Orwellian switch.
Well, that's
where,
why
like,
he didn't
hey,
get
we
nadered,
love that
right?
Bernie Sanders ran as a Democrat, even though we constantly trashed him for not being a Democrat and implied that he had no business running in the Democratic Party. Now we actually, hey, why not do what he did? That worked out great. We rigged it against him. And, the first time Trump won, second time Biden won. That doesn't really matter to us so much as we were able to stop the left populist candidate. And now that he's running as a Green, they can't control him. They have no veto power over his candidacy.
I think there's also, we didn't play that part right at the beginning. There's a psychological intelligence to the school of thought that he's coming out of. He's coming out of the Gandhi, Martin Luther King.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
He's coming out of the school of thought that it is very difficult for people to be antagonistic towards you when you're loving towards them. The passive resistance thing is not a Christian in the sense that I think people always take it. There's a strategic intelligence to it, especially when the fight you're in is asymmetric, where you're facing an overwhelming power that you can't possibly defeat with aggression. It's what John Lennon said. The establishment's going to pull your beard. It's going to poke you because they want you to get violent because then they know how to handle you. Right? They want you to lash out. He opened this by congratulating her on her new job with the sister
for a minute
thing.
he goes on, "Oh, Sister Kristen Welker, so beautiful to see you getting this new gig, and I remember you from Harvard Yard, now meet the press. Wow, congratulations." It's very disarming. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that set her up to be more open to what he had to say. It's just how human nature works. It's very difficult to be an asshole to somebody who's complimenting you and being very warm towards you. It's just, it doesn't come naturally to most people to not respond. So that's why by the time he gets to this, he's set her up psychologically to be keyed into what he has to say. And that's something else you've said. I agree. That's part of the value of him in particular being the candidate, because he's able to pull that off, right? He's coming out of this tradition of, projecting Christian love, not necessarily in a theological sense, but it's a rhetorical style, and it's very effective, particularly running as a third-party candidate in a media climate where they want to nadir him. He's making it very hard for them to give him the nadir treatment.
Yeah, and they also know that he didn't just turn on this charm once he ran for office. They've known him for decades. He's been like this for decades. They know this is how he is. All right, let's keep going.
People lift every voice. We need many, many more voices, and the two parties that we have are too narrow at this point.
Dr. West, as you know, though, if you look back throughout history, third-party candidates have at times made the difference in presidential elections, including in 2016, when in some key states, Jill Stein, for example, seemed to make a difference. Would you be okay if at the end of the day, the vote totals came back, you stayed through the entire race, and it was clear that your candidacy helped deliver former President Trump another term in office?
Right. Now, he gives an answer to this that's a lot longer than the answer I would have given. My answer would have been yes. Are you okay with that? Yes.
No, actually, I wanted him to knock down that myth. I would have liked to have seen him get into the, well, why don't you go talk to the millions of two-time Obama voters that voted for Donald Trump, and why don't you ask why they did that? He didn't go there, but he brought up he didn't accept the narrative. I appreciated that he got into some of the just statistical reality of the fact that this is a myth, that people who are so turned off to the Democratic Party that even in the face of a Trump presidency, they decided to vote for Jill Stein. What on earth makes you think they would have voted for Hillary Clinton under any circumstances? We know from interviews with people like that, polling people like that, they would have not voted.
Right. Exactly.
Or they would have done what I do, write in Paul Atreides and other
Exactly.
fictional characters.
Let's hear his answer.
For the vast number of voters who would vote for a Green Party and myself either would not vote at all or would never, ever, ever vote for Biden or Trump. And that's very important to keep in mind, because there's this narrative, I think it's a false narrative, thinking that somehow they're choosing between Biden and myself. No, not really. They've given up on Biden. What is it now? 48% of our precious fellow citizens do not vote at all, my dear sister. That's not a good sign in a democracy that's already in decay. That's not a good symptom of a democracy already experiencing a kind of decadence. We've got to bring new people in, and neither party is really interested in speaking to that 48% that has given up on American democracy.
So one of the things that he's done, he did very well in this interview, was he answered the question and then pivoted to his points. That's what you have to do. You don't want to duck the question. You want to answer it, and you want to get to your points about 63% living paycheck to paycheck, right? About the low voter turnout overall. So yeah, I agree. It was very, very well done. And then the big question comes in just a minute. It might even be next. I haven't watched this since last night. When she asked him, "Are you in it to the end?" Because that's the thing I'm most worried about, honestly.
He's
what do you
learning
say
fast.
to your fellow progressives, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Senator John Fetterman, who've expressed their real concerns about a third-party candidacy? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, quote, "It's very difficult to square the very real threat of a Republican presidency with the risk of giving up the very small margin of electoral votes needed to ensure that President Biden wins." John Fetterman says, "I fundamentally believe that you don't mess around with the kinds of highest stakes we're dealing with.
Or his wife
Can you
said
just
this?
imagine what a second term of Trump would be?"
Well, you notice they bracketed the word dealing because he obviously skipped over that word, which is not necessarily a word you would skip over. I don't want to beat up on John Fetterman, but yeah, I mean, first of all, look, of course they're going to say this. They're Democrats and he's a Green, right? The answer to this is implicit in the asking of the question itself.
Right.
Yeah, when you operate off the assumption that Biden is better than Trump, these are the kinds of things that go through your mind. When you run as a third party, you cannot operate under that assumption. You can't.
Something he's not going to do, in keeping with what we were just saying about that, the kind of peace and love approach has a tactical point. She says, so your fellow progressives, I mean, if I were sitting there, I'd be, what fellow progressive?
Right, yeah, exactly.
He's not AOC?
Right,
She voted for all the Ukraine funding. What the fuck? What are you talking, fellow progressive? What are you talking
John
about?
Fetterman
doesn't know where the fuck he is.
But John Fetterman doesn't even pretend to be a progressive now. I mean, he basically pivoted to the center as soon as that primary was over. He started saying he was for fracking. He's not for Medicare for all. He started distancing himself from the Sanders
Fetterman,
win.
really, I'm not trying to make fun of a disability, but I refuse to pretend that his office holding is normal. I refuse. Listen, this guy shouldn't be there. They propped up a disabled man because they thought it was their best chance at a seat. And if anything, this guy's being abused. I am not going to normalize John Fetterman being in the Senate. He clearly is struggling, and the people around him are just puppeting him as a senator and just telling him what to do, as far as I can see.
It's truly amazing. I mean, one of the biggest electoral, we don't have to get off on a tangent here, but one of the biggest electoral self-owns in history has to be the Republicans nominating Dr. Oz, because anyone else besides Dr. Oz would have side-pocketed John Fetterman so easily in that race. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Wait, what do you call it? What's the name of it? Crudité.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Do you see the cost of crudité? You can't make that up. That's like Thurston Howell III for president.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go.
It's all going to be about revenge. What do you say to your fellow progressives who are expressing deep concerns about a third-party candidacy?
Again, this is just like, she asked literally the same question 4 times. It's amazing. Every question is the same. But why aren't you running as a Democrat, and will you drop out?
1 out of 8 of the voters for Trump voted for Bernie Sanders.
This is a good answer. I like
Trump
this answer
followers
here.
are not homogeneous and monolithic. If you can speak to their pain, if you can speak to their frustration, they will never vote for Democrats. But many of them would be open to those who are speaking to their needs. They don't have to follow the Pied Piper, the neo-fascist Pied Piper with Trump. A new vision, a different alternative can convince a significant number of them. And so, again, I'm resisting the notion that somehow it's just a matter of myself and Brother Biden.
That's a very clever answer, because you're saying, look,
Yeah. What makes you
I don't
think I
plan
won't
on
pick
just
off
pulling
his
votes from
voters?
Biden. I plan on pulling votes from Trump too.
Right.
You know, that's a
Yeah.
very, very smart answer. He has definitely done some on the job learning since those first
He's
few
much
interviews.
much better. And hey, you know, that was one of my questions. I said last time we talked about this at length. I had a wait and see attitude. I want to see, because he made a couple of really dumb moves, you know, amateur kind of moves coming out of the gate. And my question was really, you know, is he just too much on that creative, flighty, academic side to really be effective in this role? And this reassures me. No, he's figuring it out as he goes.
Right.
That people are choosing between. No, we've got large numbers of non-voters who are interested, especially young people. Look at the percentage of young people. Only 20-some% participate at all. I want to speak to those young folk. I want to try to galvanize their energy.
Okay, we're short on time. I have to ask you point blank.
Dr. West,
are you
I'm getting a
seriously
hard
going to do
wrap,
this?
so just yes or no. Are you in this until the very end, or is there a chance you'll reconsider at some point and potentially drop out?
Well, I am a jazz man, you know that, but I intend to be in it to the very end, because it's not just about it's not about this particular election only. It's about a larger movement. We've got to break the two-party system, and to do it is now. And if we don't do it now, we'll find ourselves back and forth with this swing between the fascists on the one hand and the neoliberals on the other.
All right. So the fact that, you know, they're starting to staff up now and that this is starting to become formalized gives me more hope, because you also have to believe, as much as, you know, the Green Party does not have a reputation for being a particularly tight, disciplined, well-run organization, you have to think the reputational harm, to borrow a phrase from AOC, that they would suffer if their candidate dropped out at the last minute would just be catastrophic. There'd be no Green Party. Like their support would just completely evaporate.
Yeah,
if
nobody
their
would
candidate,
ever bother again.
No one would ever bother again. So you have to imagine they're having some conversations like, okay, we're getting ready. This is getting official now. If you're going to do this, you have to stay in till the end, no matter what. You cannot fuck us like that. So that's where we're at. And I thought, yeah, that was a very, very good and encouraging interview.
That definitely reassured me that he's up to the job. I had my doubts, as you know. I've voiced them on the show. I've had a wait and see attitude, and I still do. Let's see. I mean, it's one thing. This is still early days. We're not even past Labor Day yet.
Of course, yeah.
The interview
We're still over
she
a
just
year
gave
from the
him.
election. Yeah.
Look, my sister, congratulations on your promotion. That shit's not going to be working by January when he's polling 6%.
Right.
And Biden is losing to Trump. Right. So let's see how he handles that going forward. But it's encouraging. It's encouraging. I like what I'm seeing.
Please clap.